How we doing, everybody? It is Jimmy King with WrestleLaunch here, and I have my Sabu shirt because AEW Dynamite's 3-hour episode was from Philadelphia. So, of course, I have to rock my Sabu shirt. And there were actually multiple references at Double or Nothing to Sabu, and there's even multiple references to Sabu tonight on Double or Nothing. So, we are going to get ourselves ready for a great night. That's right. We're getting right into it. Like I said, Dynamite is brought to you from Philadelphia's Liacouras Center, and we start the night off with Kevin Knight prepared to explain himself from his actions at Double or Nothing. Now, if you have not seen my Double or Nothing review, which should have come out before this, you should probably go watch that, because that'll probably tell you what happened. He explains why he attacked Darby because Darby failed everyone. He gets a good crowd pop for using the Sixers losing to the Knicks, and it's not like a good pop, but like, a lot of boos and the pop that he kind of wants right now because he's a heel. Mike Bailey comes down to tell Kevin that he must apologize, and if he can apologize before anything gets out of hand, most people will forgive him. And unfortunately, he then gives Mike Bailey a shoulder check and then attacks Mike Bailey. Backstage after that, we see the Demand talking with Renee Paquette, talking about their loss at Stadium Stampede. Ricochet will be facing Jericho to start things off tonight with everyone banned from ringside. So obviously they are deciding to continue on with this one just a little bit. When we do see the match, we see Ricochet try to put Jericho through the announce table, but Jericho, being Jericho, is able to reverse it into a Walls of Jericho. They go for a good while just back and forth, showing what they both can do. There's multiple times where Jericho tries to hit Ricochet with something or goes for like the walls or a submission maneuver, and Ricochet continues to work over Jericho's knee. Jericho does end up hitting a lion salt and does get the win, but as he celebrates, Ciampa comes out and attacks Jericho. And a friend of mine continues to call him the serial kisser. Speaking of which, we're going to leave this segment right here open for the one and only real hardcore Holly, who is going to give you a little bit of a Cornette moment, but she's cooler than Cornette. So here you go.
All right. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the, first installment of Holly Yaps on Graps. I am known as the real hardcore Holly online, and no, I am not Robert Howard Jr. I do not go by Bob Holly, and I have never worked for the WWE. But I assure you, I am more hardcore than that man can ever be. I think we're going to start with a little thing called Holly's Heat Meter. And you can thank one Mr. Kevin Knight. Yes, that's right, the Jet. As we've seen at Double or Nothing, Kevin Knight decided to turn his back on all of AEW with a UFO splash from the top rope to Darby Allin outside on a stretcher. On Dynamite, we see Speedball, Mike Bailey, come out and address Kevin Knight. These two have been tag team partners in AEW for just around a year. And it is sad to see it come to an end. But I will say that I am so glad that Speedball is not going to take this shit lying down. He comes out there in a gi tux that I know everyone was not a fan of. But I'll tell you, I thought he was looking quite snazzy. Especially facing that asshole, Kevin Knight. The man comes out dressed like The Rock from 1990. The only thing he was missing was a fanny pack, which is absolutely ridiculous. What the fuck are you doing, Jet? What are you doing? You came out and you tried to tell us that you beat Darby Allin up for all of us, for all of the AEW fans, because Darby had let us down. Nobody, that would be you. You're the one that let us down. If you couldn't tell by the monstrous boos that were coming from the crowd. Oh, and please, let's not forget the fuck you Kevin chant, the shut the fuck up chant. I have been watching AEW pretty hardcore for the past year. I have not missed a current, weekly episode. And I'll tell you, that is the loudest I have heard anyone booed in a long time in AEW. Not even MJF gets that many boos. So, Kevin, I hope you look back on that, and I hope you're fucking proud of yourself. I hope you're just giddy with joy knowing that you literally destroyed your career. And I say destroyed your career because Speedball's not playing. They came out there, they asked you to apologize. You didn't want to apologize. Instead, you turned around and attacked them with the belt. That shows your character. Who the hell could hit Speedball with a belt? Nobody. We all love him too much. I will say that I mean, it seems to be that Kevin doesn't really care. He's going to be selfish. He's going to be out for himself. So that's fine. We have a match coming up on Wednesday. It's going to be Speedball versus Kevin Knight. To say I'm looking forward to it would be an understatement. I know this will not be the only match these two have. I have a feeling we might see a little funky ending. That way we can get a continued story. I'm asking for no less than a best of 25 series. Give it to me. Let it run for the rest of the year storyline. No, I'm just playing. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens on Wednesday. I am super stoked to see where they are going to go with the other breakup, Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. I will say that I propped pretty hard whenever Konosuke Takeshita came out with the conglomeration. They will forever be known as the Conglomerashita from now on. So make sure you all write that down. I don't want to see anybody typing it incorrectly, getting it confused. That is what they will be called, the Conglomerashita. But yeah, that should be interesting. He's going to help them go against the Don Callis family. Seems like we have a lot of redemption arcs coming up, which seems fitting considering that we have the pay-per-view AEW Redemption coming up in Canada. I am excited to be doing this review with Jim. It seems like it's unlike anything I've ever done. Definitely a unique experience. You guys will have to be patient with me. I'm not used to recording audio, and I'm sure I sound like a goof right now. So Jim, just cut all that out. I do wanna touch on one thing before I get off of here. I would like to see, and everybody would like to see, I see it everywhere across the IWC daily. We need more women's Graps. Tony Khan recently touched on the fact that we're not getting very many women's matches during Dynamite and Collision. During the Double or Nothing media scrum, he tried to make it seem like it's because of the networks, played it off saying that, you can watch Ring of Honor. We have a ton of women's wrestling there and there's no commercials. While that is completely true, I will say that since Toni Storm has left, we have seen a downgrade, I guess, or less of a push to show women's matches on TBS and TNT, on HBO Max. Now, whether it's the network's fault or maybe it's just the fact that, Toni Storm was a major player in their storylines, and maybe they're just kind of fumbling right now. But for Tony Khan to have so many great women on the roster, and for us to only be gifted 1 to 2 matches here lately, if we are getting 3 women's matches, 2 of them are squish matches, and it's like, we get no time getting to see these women wrestle. So that would be something that I would like to see increase. Like I said, whenever Toni Storm was on the roster, I felt like we got plenty of women's matches. I'll always take more women's matches. The women are my favorite, to be honest with you. Toni Storm is the whole reason why I started watching AEW and getting interested in it. And they have so many great women that I feel like they could honestly have their own show weekly. Give me a little 1-hour show on YouTube and it's just women's matches. Give me a 2-hour show on Tuesdays when we're not really doing anything, because who watches NXT, to, see women displayed there. But do not tell me during a media scrum to tune into ROH, because we don't have commercials there and we can feature more women there. Because while that is the case, and you do have great workers over there like Maya World, Persephone, Athena, Queen Aminata shows up there. I could continue to go on. While you do have those women over there, and it's fantastic. We would also like to see more on the pay-per-views. Here lately, the past 2 pay-per-views, you've had a majority of the women's matches before the pay-per-view even starts. And whether they're doing that because that's the free show, and maybe they want to show more women's wrestling during that free hour. We don't know, right? We're just the fans. But to us, it just seems like we are not getting to see the women to their full potential, and that is something that I do hope changes in the future. And with that, that is the end of the official first segment of Holly Yaps on Graps. Thanks for sticking by me as I fumbled through this. And yeah, back to Jim with his review. Catch you later.
We then end up seeing Andrade after that saying, "How you knowing?" basically, to MJF, saying that he wants a shot at the title. I really want to see that one. That one's going to be great. Really, really do. We end up going to commercial, and when we come back, we have a Superstation showcase match. They end up explaining what the Superstation was, and that makes me kind of excited because that takes me back to when I was a kid. And it's going to be Orange Cassidy versus Brian Cage versus Roosh versus Blackheart Leo Rush. This, yeah, made me happy. Let's just put it that way. Brian Cage and Roosh start things off, and even though there is a moment where things get a little bit out of hand and they are not able to completely finish a maneuver off, they still manage to show just why they are the two hosses fighting within this match. And then Cassidy and the Blackheart Leo Rush go psych for psych with each other, which was fun to watch. And then, of course, at some point, as we see Orange Cassidy continue to fight with Brian Cage, Lance Archer and Rocky Romero show up and go after Orange Cassidy, and Jake Something shows up and they take them to the back. So Orange Cassidy and, Cage are just gone. Which leaves the Rooshes, Rush and Roosh. Roosh does eventually get the win, and he does get the pin with and he wins the match, and that means he's going to be going, I'm assuming, for a title. We go to the back and we see Renee talking to MJF as he's walking into frame, dragging the title belt. He then has the big, beautiful Burberry belt on his shoulder as he says that his belt is now home. We then see Kevin Knight walk in as they go back and forth with MJF about whether or not Jet deserves a shot at the title. Jet talks about being Jet 2 belts, and he talks about the fact that they both should be disappointed in what happened with Darby. MJF dismisses Kevin Knight, however, and he turns around and he's met by Kyle Fletcher, who basically says that he wants his title back, so he will be watching him. We then see a Mark Briscoe video, which was fun to see because Mark Briscoe is always awesome, and he's always able to do some crazy thing. So Mark basically in this video is talking about he can't stop doing what he's doing because he's got Jay's voice telling him to keep going. Then we have the Brawling Birds talking. First, they talk about Jamie losing in the match at Double or Nothing, which she says she's okay with because she got a lot of good hits on Tekla. She almost took her head off, as she says. Alex Windsor then says that Willow, when she comes back, better be ready because she is ready for a fight. And then she says that basically she will take on whomever they decide to be the wild card, which we do find out will be on next week's Dynamite. So we get to see who that is. That's going to be actually a lot of fun because I'm kind of curious to see what happens because I want to see how the brackets look because everybody's just kind of screwed up now. MJF comes down and talks about his usual thing. This is their celebration of him being a 3-time champion, talking about how he's a generational talent, his usual stuff. Mark Briscoe comes down to ruin the party, even throws MJF's new 3-time flag down to the ground. Mark says he wants a title shot, and MJF says he isn't on the level of the devil, and then he dismisses Mark Briscoe. And as that happens, Roosh cuts MJF off, and he says that it's funny that Mark Briscoe is the chicken farmer, but MJF is the chicken shit. Roosh does get psyched out by MJF about a match tonight because you do see that MJF seems to be a little bit more interested in a match against Roosh instead of Mark Briscoe. I will admit that the last time MJF and Mark Briscoe went up against each other, that was awful bloody for MJF. So we do find out, however, that it will be next week, MJF versus Roosh for MJF's world title. And then we have a fucking hoss fight. Claudio Castagnoli against Brody King for the Owen Hart bracket. I'm going to put it down over here. And this will be just fucking, I'm telling you guys, when I say a Hoss fight, they don't really have many wrestling moves in this match. It's pretty much blow for blow. They just throw each other around. They try to hit each other. And it's good. Honestly, some people would say that's probably going to be a bad match, but not between these two. They're very good at what they do. And the fact that they have been in wrestling for as long as both of them have, especially Claudio, they're able to pull this off. And we do end up seeing that Brody King is going to win this one. So my bracket still very much intact, and it's going to be Brody King versus Swerve. I'm looking forward to that one. We now have a segment with Cage and Cope, and of course Cage starts things off like his normal self, and Cope kind of lets him because they like to play off a little bit, but they do admit that FTR is a great team. And then as things go on, Cope tries to get Cage to do their first 5-second pose in about 25 years, going all the way to dumping a bag of disposable cameras on the mat so that he can distribute them amongst the fans at ringside, because Cage does remind Cope that there is no longer flash photography. But for tonight, there definitely is. But unfortunately, just as we're about to actually get our first 5-second pose in about 20 some odd years, we do see David Finlay and Clark Connors come in and attack the World Tag Team Champions. Both of them getting attacked pretty well. We see Cage's arm get crushed underneath the steps, and Shillelagh smacks around for everybody. And then we get the Dog's 5-second pose. That's right, we see David Finlay and Clark Connors pull a 5-second pose, which was fun. We then have a Ty J match, and it's honestly just a quick assault, and they get this one very win. Mike Bailey says something extremely fiery about the fact that he is not going to allow Kevin Knight to do what he did, so he wants a shot at the TNT title, and it's later confirmed that he will have that shot at Dynamite next week. So that's going to be fun. Next week's Dynamite's already shaping up to be awesome. We then see the final opening round match of the Owen Hart tournament for the men's side, with Jack Perry and Mark Davis facing off, and they do have a solid back and forth, but at one point in time, Mark Davis does get Jack Perry down outside the ring and then sits on top of the turnbuckle, very Taz-like, since they are in good old Philadelphia. And it does actually piss Taz off quite a bit that he's just sitting on the top turnbuckle with his arms crossed. It does. Jack Perry does get suplexed onto the ring apron sideways, which ends up making him lose his shoes. And throughout commercial break, they talk about that. He loses his socks at some point in time, too, because Mark Davis just goes full mentally mean and just starts pulling his socks off and trying to do whatever he can. Mark Davis does eventually put Jack Perry away, though, to get the win here, which means it will be Will Ospreay versus Mark Davis. I picked that one too. I'm going to put the guys' brackets up here, and we'll talk about that here at the end. We then see the Don Callis family talking about Takeshita, and this is actually the segment that kicks off Collision. I'm not calling it Collision because they're going to have a collision on Saturday, so this is just fucking Dynamite, guys. We're not doing this. Okay? They do say, though, however, that Takeshita does not allow a lot of his stuff to align with the Don Callis family. Unfortunately, that does not go well for Takeshita, because Takeshita decides to come out flanked by the conglomeration, which is actually kind of fun to see, because he walks out and they kind of just flank around him. We will see Will talk about Mark Davis, since they will face each other next week, talking about how he lived with him rent-free. I always wonder why they do this type of thing. Like, you lived with me and you didn't pay rent. Like, okay, cool, man. We don't need to know that you were a good guy. As we should know. He is preparing for a match, so we do get to see him come out with Mox. Well, he goes out by himself, but he is teaming up with Jon Moxley and Pac of the Death Riders going up against the Rascals. Ospreay actually works well with Pac and Mox here, despite Will and Pac having had their differences in the past. We do see team of Ospreay and the Riders get the win here, and they actually look good together. I was really happy to see how well they work together. I like this story that they're going, because he is eventually going to end up having to explain a few things because of the whole Death Riders thing and United Empire being the way they are, because there's a few things going on in New Japan with them too. We end up seeing Andrade versus Ace Austin after this, and this goes just as well. And I love Ace Austin. This kid can fucking go. Like, those deep squats that he can do with the wrestler on his back is crazy. Andrade has another lady figure at ringside. But we do see Andrade get the win here, as he should. Nothing against Ace Austin, but Andrade is the one that they're trying to build right now, and we actually have it. I will say, the match before Shida and Statlander, which is Andrade and Ace, is a good match to have because there wasn't a lot of big stuff that happened. Andrade didn't even take off his pants. So it was one of those things where like they kept things kind of chilled because they knew what was about to happen was going to be crazy. They do have the lights go on and off for this one, and it starts off pretty strong, and then it gets unhinged pretty quickly. Statlander tosses a chair very much like Sabu used to, and it actually catches Shida. Shida does get her hand up, but it catches her for a moment, and they're actually talking about how she does look a little bit dazed. At one point in time, on one side of the ring, Shida is stacking chairs, and on the other side, Stat is putting up a table. They start going off about things across the ring, and Stat runs around and ends up getting a drop toe hold into the chairs that are all set up right there. At one point in time, Statlander brings out a light tube like she's about to hit Shida, and Shida begs her off, and it actually works. And then Shida ends up using the fucking light tube after they get back into the ring. At one point in time, they are on the ring apron. Shida goes to use a kendo stick, and Stat catches it and breaks it and then stabs her in the head with it, and she hits a Saturday Night Fever. I can't say that correctly every single time. Through the table that she had set up earlier at ringside. Once she gets her back in the ring, Harley Cameron comes running down and convinces Stat to use Shida's own kendo stick against her like she had used on Double or Nothing. Another Saturday Night Fever, and then a win right there for Statlander against Shida. I will say, you know what? I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. I will say, though, that Jericho got the win against Ricochet. But I will say that this episode was actually really well done. It doesn't need to be fantastical. It doesn't need to be the biggest fucking glitzy thing ever. But at the end of the day, it should at the very least be a good show. And it was a good show, even though it was 3 hours long. Guys, please, let's not do this anymore. We don't need 3-hour shows. Okay? Like, I get a couple of times where, like, you know, you didn't have a show on Collision or you only had a 1 hour thing or whatever. But, like, you guys are having Collision this Saturday, so there's no need for 3 hours. Just saying, okay? I love you guys. Dude, there's no reason for it. But that's going to be it for me and my Dynamite review. I'm calling it the Dynamite review. I don't care if they said it was an hour of Collision there. It was all Dynamite because the show is Dynamite. I don't know if I can use that sound. I'm going to find out. But anyway, I hope you guys all had yourselves a fantastic one. I am going to get out of here. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you have anything to say, make sure you say it because it's not only my opinion that matters. It is yours as well. We are also on podcasting services like Spotify. I'm trying to get us on Google as well. There's a few other ones that are out there. Maybe not Google. Maybe it's Amazon. That's what it is. It's Amazon. It's Amazon Music, and we're also trying to get on Apple too. That one I got to work on Sponge with. But if you want us on a podcasting service that you listen to, make sure you comment it so I know where to put it so I can put it up there. Make sure you guys have yourselves a fantastic one. Remember my 4 simple rules. Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and above all else, just love professional wrestling. I love you guys. I'm out of here.